Hi guys, hope you are well and staying safe in this critical time of the COVID-19 virus. Please stay home. It's very important. Government instructions. I'm really missing your faces and I'm really missing human beings in general because it's so boring staying home, but so important to stay home, okay? And remember, you are in year 11, it's your final exam year. Please study hard and do all your homework and submit it on time. Okay, last week, in my first video, I taught on chapter 17 on quality management. And today I'm going to teach chapter 18, that is location decisions or where to locate your business. This is the last chapter in the operations management section of your textbook before we head to the next section, finance management. Okay, I've downloaded or uploaded rather my notes for this chapter in Google Classroom together with the textbook pages that I've snapshot because I know some of you forgot to bring back your textbook. So please go on to Google Classroom in the business studies section of your class and get my notes, get the textbook pages and study that before watching this video so you can understand my lessons better. Any questions you may have, please feel free to WhatsApp message me. Don't send messages on Google Classroom because I check my WhatsApp more often. Okay, any questions you may have, check my WhatsApp me, or you can even call me. Okay, now the homework that I'm going to give you for this chapter is in the last 5 minutes of this video. So skip to the last 5 minutes of this video if you want to know the mark schemes and the homework you need to do, which is due next Wednesday, 8th of April. Anytime, just submit it by next Wednesday. All the best for that. Okay, so in chapter 20, we are studying about location decisions. What do you need to consider before you decide where to locate your office or your factory? Okay, ideally a business wants to be located near their target customers and their suppliers because it's convenient, but they cannot always get the place they want for various reasons. For example, location may not be the location where they are interested in may not be available for rent or for sale, or it could be too expensive for them. Also, there are many government laws that restrict where a company can do business. For example, a factory cannot operate in a housing area or an area where there are a lot of shop lots and retailers. Okay, so therefore it is important for a business to consider the various factors or various questions you need to ask that will help their business determine the best place to locate their business operations. All right, so there are common factors where all businesses need to consider. There are also factors unique to a particular type of business. For example, there are factors that only a service type business need to consider. And there are factors that a manufacturing business only needs to consider, and also a factor whereby multinationals need to consider. Okay, so below in my notes are factors to consider when deciding where to locate a business. Number one, is the land or building you are looking at suitable? A business must ensure land and building they move into has the right amount of space, layout, and facilities. For example, if you are looking for a place to put your farm, okay, the land must be spacious enough where the animals can roam and the soil fertile enough for healthy vegetables to grow. If you are looking for an office building, you need to ask, is there enough rooms of appropriate sizes for your office? And is there proper facilities like bathrooms, a pantry, or emergency fire staircases, for example? Factor 2, property costs. Okay, obviously, can a company afford that office or that factory in a certain location? Some locations are more expensive than other places. If you're close to the city center, where it's near your customers, it's obviously more expensive to rent or to buy property. But further out in the rural areas, it's cheaper. Okay, so but the property in the location where you are interested in must suit your budget. Factor 3, is there adequate utility supply, communication network, as well as transport links in the location you want to set up your business? Okay, so for example, is there adequate water and electricity supply in that office area you are targeting? Okay, or is there strong internet and phone connection in that area? And does that place have good transport networks? For example, is it near to highways, bus stops where your workers can come to work nearby? Is there train stations, seaports and airports where you need to export your products quickly? Okay, so you need to consider that factor. Number 4, you need to ask whether you need to be close to market. Market means customers. Is the location close to customers? That's ideal because it's quicker and cheaper to send the goods to the retailers where the customers will buy. Okay, especially important for short expiry goods like food. Okay, your factory needs to be near the customers so that you can transport, otherwise the food goes bad quickly. Okay, also being near customers increases business presence. It's free advertising really. If there's a Tesco store in every housing area, everyone would know Tesco. Okay, and but again, as I mentioned earlier, rents, property prices in highly populated areas where your customers usually live is more expensive than in the rural areas. That's why many factories prefer to be in the rural areas or further away from the cities where rents are cheaper. Okay, so how do they overcome the long distance then? Well, technology, okay, like food preservatives and refrigeration. Refrigeration means even the transport trucks has fridge inside to transport meats over long distances. Okay, will help food manufacturers, okay, to be able to be located further away from where customers are. Okay, and also technology like more efficient transportation will help with that as well. Factor 5, you need to consider availability of labor and cost of labor in a particular area you want to locate to. Okay, so businesses should be located where the type of workers needed live. Okay, otherwise the business will have to pay for transport or accommodation costs of workers if they come from another town or from somewhere far away. Okay, so for example, if your office needs white-collar workers, you should set up your office in or near the city because that's where a lot of corporate executives live. Okay, they can come to work in short distance. If you're looking at a factory that needs blue-collar workers, so you should set up your factory near housing areas where these blue-collar workers live. Usually far away because rents in those housing in those places are cheaper. So that's where these middle-class people live. Okay, so also the business should study the average pay of workers in a particular town or city where you want to set up your business to see if the business can afford the salary and wage costs in that area. Okay, workers living in the city usually demand higher pay because cost of living is more expensive compared to workers living in suburbs, in villages, in further places away from cities, obviously. Okay, number 6, you need to ask, is there access to raw materials and suppliers where you want to locate your office or factory? Okay, businesses should ideally be located near the source of their raw materials and suppliers for quick and cost-effective transport. So for example, a chocolate factory should be located near cocoa farms. Okay, or a factory that producing coconut products should be in countries like Malaysia, for example, or Philippines, where there's lots of coconut trees. Okay, so this is essentially especially important for raw materials that can go bad within a short period of time. Number 7, government laws and government influence. In other words, legal controls that affect location decisions. So the government designates different zones for different types of activities. For example, industrial zones, factories can only set up in industrial zones. Shop lots, shopping centers, office buildings, retailers can only set up in commercial zones. And houses and condominiums where people live can only be built in residential zones. Okay, these are all designated by the government. Okay, why? For example, a factory cannot operate in a housing or shop lot area as it is illegal. Why? Because they want to protect residents and office workers from pollution that might come from the factories. Okay, that's government laws. It's a factor to watch out for before deciding where to locate or whether you can locate your office or factory in a certain area. But also government influence. Okay, some governments give special incentives for factories to locate in rural areas, for example, so that jobs can be created for the villagers. Okay, incentives like tax-free status or grants and subsidies to build the factories are given by government, so to encourage factories to locate in the quiet areas. Okay, so some companies might say, hey, I want to locate in a small town because of these government incentives. Otherwise, I wouldn't even consider that location because it's too far away. Okay, so number 8, location of competitors. A business should consider if it's wise to be near competitor or you should be far away from your competitor. It depends on your type of business. For example, if you operate a restaurant, you might want to be located near where other restaurants are located, because a lot of people looking for food always visits that location. And after all, you're selling different types of food, right? So the customers that come to the area might be attracted to try your food. But if you run a bookshop, for example, you might want to be far away from the next bookshop, okay? Because you sell similar books, okay? And finally, number 9, personal preference of owners. I think this is obvious. Business owners tend to choose work locations that are either near their home or where there is less traffic jam, or because they simply like the environment, okay? So business owners, based on their preference, it's also a factor to consider where to locate their business. So 9 factors, you can check that out in my notes. Okay, that is the first section. The second section of the notes, factors to consider for businesses wanting to locate to a foreign country, right? Some businesses might want to, Malaysian companies might want to set up a new factory or office in Japan or in India, for example, okay? So apart from the common factors already mentioned earlier, these are additional factors that you need to consider if you want to locate your business overseas. Number 1, you need to consider relocation costs versus exporting costs. You have to ask yourself, is it more worth it to open a factory in another country, or rather to export your products made in your home country to that foreign country? Okay, the business should consider the most cost-effective option by comparing export costs versus relocation costs. Okay, export costs includes cost of transporting your products overseas. That includes shipping costs, insurance costs, and handling costs. Handling costs is the workers needed to move your products, okay, onto the ships and off the ships into the retailers in the foreign country. Okay, insurance cost is you need to cover the products from loss in case the ship sinks, or maybe it got rusted by salt water. The insurance cost will cover that loss. Okay, as well as exchange rate risks. Okay, if you're exporting your product overseas, okay, you are dealing with different currencies. Just say you are a Malaysian factory, you need to earn ringgit, but you're selling your product to Japan, customers there will pay you in Japanese yen. So when you take back that money, you need to convert it to ringgit. Okay, so the fluctuations of the currency between Japanese yen and ringgit will cause exchange rate fluctuations. You will learn this more in chapter 26 later on. Okay, but basically to note that if the Japanese yen becomes weaker compared to the ringgit, or the ringgit becomes stronger compared to the Japanese yen, therefore you will earn an exchange rate loss, okay, which is a financial loss. And so that's what I consider part of export costs, okay. And you need to compare export costs with relocation costs, the cost of moving your factory to the foreign country. For example, I set up a factory in Japan instead of exporting my products to Japan. Okay, so relocation costs includes research costs of finding a suitable premise for your business. For example, you may need to pay property agent fees. Also, you need to consider the cost of the property, to buy or rent the property. You need to consider the cost of moving your equipment, your machines, and even workers from your home country that is needed in the foreign country, in the factory overseas. Okay, so that is very costly. Okay, and also the cost of building, the cost of constructing your factory or office in the foreign country. And finally, there might be specific government taxes imposed on foreign companies, imposed by the foreign country you are planning to locate to. Okay, so you have to weigh, is it cheaper to export or is it more worth it to relocate my factory overseas? Okay, so that's the first factor to consider for overseas relocation. Number two, import barriers. I think, as you know, some governments in foreign countries may impose import tariffs and import quotas that will make your products more expensive than the local goods in that country. Okay, so that they protect the local businesses there. Okay, all of these definitions, what is import quota, import barrier, relocation costs, what is export, what is import, all these are in my notes. Go and read it yourself so that it helps you understand what I'm saying easier. Okay, right. Number three, government incentives for foreign companies. Okay, as I was talking about government incentives before, governments of some foreign countries, they give you special incentive so that foreign companies, international companies, will relocate and set up business in that country, so that it creates jobs, creates wealth, it brings in inflow of foreign capital into that country. Okay, so governments will provide incentives like tax-free status, grants, loans, free land to foreign companies to establish factories and offices in that country. A good example is Thailand. They have a lot of incentives for car companies. So German car companies like BMW, Mercedes, American car companies like Ford and General Motors, Japanese companies like Toyota and Daihatsu have set up factories in Thailand because it's cheaper there to set up factories there because of the government incentives. So they use Thailand as a factory base to produce cars to be sold throughout their Southeast Asia, to supply the Southeast Asia market. Okay, so that's why Thailand is known as the Detroit of the East. Detroit being the hub car factory of America. So Thailand, it's I think it's in Chiang Mai or it's in Bangkok. It's where the car factories are in Asia. Okay, because of the government incentives. Okay, fourth and last factor to consider in relocating overseas is the government laws in the foreign countries. Okay, a business may be affected by specific laws imposed on foreign companies. For example, minimum number of local workers foreign companies must employ, and restrictions in the kind of businesses foreign companies are allowed to operate in. For example, if a British or Japanese company sets up an office or factory in Malaysia, the Malaysian law says that they must employ at least 50 to 70% of their workers must be Malaysians. Okay, this is to create jobs for Malaysians. Okay, so the government cannot say, for example, the company cannot have 70% of their workers are Japanese in their Malaysian office. 70% must be Malaysian, 30% can be expatriates from Japan. An expatriate is a foreign worker working in your country. Okay, so there's other government laws, like for example, some countries the government may not allow foreign companies to operate certain types of business. For example, in Malaysia, a foreign company cannot set up an electricity generating and electricity distribution company. Why? It's protected. Electricity is produced by TNB and TNB alone. Foreign companies cannot touch this industry. Okay, so you need to understand foreign laws in foreign countries so that you will know, should I set up my business in that country? Is it suitable for me or not? Okay, so all these factors you need to ask yourself, is it suitable for me to set up in a particular location? Okay, now you can read the terms to understand yourself so that you understand the terms of some of the words that are used in these notes and in the textbook. Okay, and please note there's additional points that's not covered in my notes, but it's covered in the textbook. That is in page 237 and 238 of your textbook. Okay, it's the benefits and limitations faced by businesses in locating overseas. Okay, so that's in the textbook. It's not in my notes because actually it's not relevant to this chapter. It's more relevant in chapter 26 when you learn about international business later on. But it's here in the textbook, so read it up. It helps you anyway. These additional points not covered in my notes. Okay. Finally, you need to understand how to choose the right location. Okay. Because this is what the exam questions will focus on. Okay. They will give you questions like location A in this area and location B in a different area. And they'll give you all the points about each location. What is the population in each location? What is the average wage or salary cost in that location, in each location, and other things as well. And you're supposed, it's usually a 12-mark paper 2 style question, right? A B question. And you have to debate and compare between location A and location B and recommend which is the most suitable location for the company to set up office or factory. And you got to relate to the case study facts, obviously. Okay, so basically you just need to understand that different types of business will consider different factors. Okay, so it's in my notes, read it up. Okay, another few exam tips are listed in page 236 and 237 of your textbook. You have a section, it's actually small word box called top tip in page 236 and 237 in the textbook. These are further exam tips for this chapter. Go and read that up in your textbook. Okay. Now, another thing is the textbook lists all the factors to consider according to, they group it according to quantitative factors and qualitative factors. I didn't group it in this way because I feel it's pointless. Exam question will not ask you whether a factor is quantitative or qualitative. It's common sense anyway. But anyway, that's how the textbook author chooses to list it down, the factors. So just note that my notes is listed differently. It doesn't matter. I didn't list it according to quantitative or qualitative because it's not important for exams. Okay? So thank you. I hope you understand. Any questions you may need, WhatsApp me. Don't Google Classroom message me or phone me. Okay? You have my number. Alright. Homework that is due. Okay? On 8th April. That's next week, Wednesday. Submit to me via WhatsApp. You can private WhatsApp message me. Okay? The homework for chapter 18 is due on April 8th, next Wednesday. Okay? And basically, the first homework is in page 240, page 240 of your textbook. Do all the questions in Agrit South Africa case study. That is task A, B, and C. Okay? So I'm going to give you the format and the mark schemes. For task A question, identify 4 benefits to Agrit International of locating in South Africa. 8 marks. Each benefit is 2 marks. This is how you answer. Benefit 1, answer. Explanation, answer. Benefit 2, answer, explanation, answer, so on and so forth. Task B. Given the type of manufacturing activity of Agrit South Africa, what legal controls do you think might be placed on its business? Explain 2 legal controls. I'm adding to the question. Explain only 2 legal controls. Total marks is 6 marks. So each legal control is 3 marks each. This is how you answer. Legal control 1, explanation. Legal control 2, explanation. Task C. What other benefit has Agrit International obtained as a result of its decision to locate in South Africa? This is 6 marks. It's just 1 paragraph. It's like the paper 1 exam question, E-type question. It's 1 paragraph, 6 marks. Next homework is test yourself questions. Do all the 7 questions also on page 240 in your textbook. This is the mark scheme. For question 1, state 3 factors that might influence location decisions. 3 marks. 1 mark per factor. So factor 1, factor 2, factor 3. Question 2. Explain 2 reasons why a business may decide to relocate in another country. This is 6 marks. Reason 1, explanation. Reason 2, explanation. Each reason is 3 marks. Question 3. Explain how legal factors can influence location decisions. I add to the question. Explain 2 legal factors. Total 6 marks. Legal factor 1, explanation. Legal factor 2, explanation. 3 marks each factor. Question 4. How can a relocation decision affect a business existing workforce? Explain 2 relocation decisions. Total 6 marks. Relocation decision 1, explanation. Relocation decision 2, explanation. 3 marks each point. Question 5. How might consumers influence a location decision? Explain 2 influences. Okay, so it's 6 marks. Influence 1, explanation. Influence 2, explanation. Question 6. Should cost be the major influence on location decisions? 6 marks. This is a 1 paragraph, paper 1 E-type question. Question 7. How and why might a country's government encourage a business to locate in its country? Again, this is 6 marks, 1 paragraph answer. Paper 1 E-type question also. Okay. Now, final homework is page 241 of your textbook. The exam practice questions. Do all the questions in 1 and 2 questions. Alright, again, homework is due on 8th April. Submit anytime. Private WhatsApp me, message me, snap a shot of your shot of your answer, and WhatsApp PM me. Okay? Thank you, all the best, and stay safe.